If you've been thinking that you want to start your own podcast, consider this your sign and your permission slip. I'm Sarah Heater, your host of Big Brave Business, and I'm also the founder and CEO of Podfox Media. We're a podcast production and strategic consultation company, and we've helped launch almost 100 shows and consulted on hundreds more. In 2024 and beyond, there are so many choices out there for podcast editors or managers or even production teams. But the difference when you work with Podfox Media is that you get access to not just our strategic support, and believe me, we are some of the best in the business, but also our core values. And that's something that I know if you've been listening to Big Brave Business for a while, you are well familiar with. If you know you want to work with a team that has your back and is actively working to change the world through revolutionary podcasting, working with thought leaders in a ton of different industries whose voices might be underrepresented in their communities or their industries or in podcasting, because let's be honest, it's a middle-aged white dude's game. That sounds like the kind of team and the kind of environment you want to be part of and you want to have behind you to get your podcast off the ground. We will help you every step of the way. Schedule your 100% free 90-minute launch strategy session with me or someone from my team at launchmyshow.com. That'll also be linked in the show notes, but it's launchmyshow.com. Welcome back to Big Brave Business. I'm your host, Sarah K. Heater. Big Brave Business is a podcast where we challenge the status quo of traditional business practices. So if you're ready to challenge norms, rewrite the rules, and redefine what it means to lead with courage and integrity, then grab a notebook and let's dive in. Welcome back to Big Brave Business. I have a return guest today, and I'm very excited to catch up because we follow each other on social media. We stay connected that way. She just shared that she listens to my podcast still, which is so nice. But my guest today came on the show pretty early on in season 2. Let me actually look like how early. It was just 1, 2, 3.
I think it was like the summer.
Like 6. Yeah. You were like my 6th episode in season 2, my 6th guest. So very, very early in this Big Brave Business journey of these conversations. So I feel like there's just a lot to catch up on. You've been up to some really excited stuff. I'm really excited to hear it. But my guest is Hady Mendez. Now, because it's been a while, you might not remember, or you might not have been listening to this podcast at the time, which, you know what? Welcome. We're so glad you're here. But we talked last year. The episode came out in June of last year. And we talked a lot about your work, Hady, with ERGs. So if you don't know what that is, it's employee resource groups. And we were talking a lot about empowering underrepresented employees. And yeah, that is / was Hady's expertise, but I'm very interested. Still is very, very interested to hear about all the other things that you are up to, especially with all of the changes to cultural appreciation for DEI programs. Now, if you're listening to this podcast, you know that just last week we had an episode that was specifically about the rise and fall of DEI. So it's not going to be a repeat of last week. Don't worry. But let my guest talk. Hi, welcome. Thank you so much for coming back.
I'm so happy to be back here. I want to give you your flowers, Sarah, real quick, because we were talking behind the scenes, but I just want everybody to know that I'll just repeat what I told you. I felt really safe and seen and appreciated the last time I was here. And so I just have really enjoy and respect you and have great appreciation for the work you do. But I just feel like you have really elevated your game, and I just feel so much more like you're my people, and I feel very comfortable and confident saying that you're my people, and I feel very safe, and yeah, just like we could talk about anything. And anyway, I just wanted you to know that I'm happy to be back.
Thank you so much for saying that.
I'm excited about where you are right now and where I am right now, and I think there's a lot of cool intersection about in the work that we're both doing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. I do feel two things I want to kind of call out on that for you listening, which is number one, this is really the power of podcasting, right? Because Hadi and I actually have only spoken once, face to face, voice to voice, however you want to put that. Like 9 months ago or something. So to be able to have that connection with each other, it is social media slash it is really the power of podcasting. Not only were we able to really get to know you on the last conversation, but you expressing that kind of feeling of connection to me probably mostly comes from listening to the show over the past several weeks or months or whatever.
Yeah.
So that is really the power of podcasting. That's one of the things that I love so much about it. And then also I want to say that is one of the things that I've learned in this podcast in this season. And this is beautiful because we're wrapping up season 2 in this month, and I'm reflecting a lot on like a year of podcasting with guests, but as a solo host on the show. And I think the more you practice being big and brave, the easier it is to be big and brave. And I've always felt like I didn't have a lot of patience for people who just want to stay surface and don't want to go deep, but it's like amplified now where to a certain degree I almost even forget that other people aren't practicing being big and brave all the time. So I
Right.
really hope that that's what this podcast kind of helps us all do is
Mhm.
practice being big and brave, whether you're part of the conversation literally on the episode or whether you're mostly just a listener lurker in the background. I hope that these conversations are helping us all practice being big and brave, and right now we need that more than ever.
Yes, I would say that it's definitely a journey, and people are on different parts of their journey. So some people are like finding
Mm-hmm.
their voice and getting
Yeah.
brave and speaking out. And when I know that sometimes when we're in around our people, we feel stronger because everyone's
Yeah.
like, yeah, yeah, that's right. But we know that a lot of people work in places and are in spaces where they're not being supported, and they
Yeah.
might, object or question something, and they might not be met with positivity. They might be met with like, why are you saying that? Or who
Yeah.
asked you? Or silenced in some way, or dismissed in some way. And when that
Dismissed.
happens, that's also hard to bounce back from because you're like, oh, I touched the flame and it was really hot and I burned my finger. I don't know if I want to do that again. But it's like, no, it's okay. If you stay within a certain distance, you can keep your hand over the flame and you don't feel the heat and you don't get burned. And it's okay. Like you could do that. But to your point, I think listening to the podcast for me has been very empowering. Like I'm like, yes, I like all the gas and the things y'all are saying. And I'm like, as I'm doing my daily walk, listening to the podcast, I'm like,
Yeah.
yes, that's exactly how I feel. So it's been very
Yes.
empowering.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think especially when we're kind of out in the world or even watching the news and something strikes a chord that is like I'll say a social narrative. Now, whether that's internal or whether that's something you've been told about yourself or whatever, when something strikes a chord, it is, you used this word before we hit record, but like it can literally be traumatizing. And I think people who are much better versed in trauma than me, but I'm lucky enough to learn from, speak about like big T trauma versus little t trauma. And like there's lots of different kinds of trauma. And so I know that there are people who would kind of roll their eyes at the idea of something like that being traumatizing. But as far as it really understanding like what a trauma response is in your body, it can literally be traumatizing and a huge setback. And when the state of things are as they are surrounding ourselves with each other,
Yeah.
and yeah, what a blessing, because everybody in this community, in this big brave business community, these are folks that I am just so glad to know and be connected with.
Yes. A lot of brave people,
Yeah.
a lot of like intentionality and
Mhm.
focus, and just people that refuse to give in or to give up
Mhm.
or to stray from their mission. And I think staying true to that, your purpose, whatever it
Yeah.
is, and your values, and just rising above the
Yeah.
negativity and the noise, that's
Yeah.
a special kind of person, but
That
it requires
actually
a lot of intentionality.
that actually feeds really well into my like main question for you that I really want to dig into today, which is what does being big and brave in your business look like for you right now? Because I
Oh,
know you're up to a lot of things. You've got some things cooking.
yeah.
What you up to?
Yeah, that's a great question. I really like it. I'll give you like two answers. The first one is more obvious. The second one is kind of a big thing, big project I'm working on. I will say you started off saying that when I came last time, I was talking about employee resource groups and the work that I do. I'm like a coach and advisor for employee resource groups. I do like workshops, I do speaking engagements,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes I'm just an advisor slash coach to either DEI leaders or ERG leaders. And DEI right now is in the crosshairs of everything,
Yes.
seemingly, and so many organizations are quite literally stepping away and doing away with their DEI programming. Most of them are still keeping their ERGs around, but it kind of, if I was an employee in a company that
Mm-hmm.
kept their ERG and got rid of everything else, I would kind of be a little sus because it's like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
like what is the group really here for? Like usually ERGs sort of align are kind of part of the strategy, a DEI strategy. And
Right.
yeah, so when you don't no longer have a DEI strategy, then what's the ERG there for? So you kind of like it does leave people a little bit high and dry. And I'm sure many ERGs right now and ERG leaders are experiencing like a lot of like confusion and not sure about like what they should focus on and concerns about like how they align, how they show impact, how they measure
Yeah.
impact. Like there's a lot of question marks, I'm sure. But what I would offer to those ERG leaders before I get to what I'm the other thing, the other way that sort of I'm dealing with everything, but what I would offer those ERG leaders, if there are any in the audience, is that I would say the priority right now is to take care of yourself and your people, your community.
Mm,
I will focus on that. I will focus on creating safe spaces, making sure that there's a safe way for members to talk about the things that they're experiencing, how they're feeling, what they're going through, how it might be impacting their work, their job, their
mm,
roles at
mm,
work, their team, relationships, dynamics,
mm-hmm.
etc. So I would
Mm-hmm.
say that is a place to focus. And if you don't have any other direction, I think that's a good place to stay for that. That would be a perfectly acceptable way for your ERG to show up this year for your members. So that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
anyway, it's I haven't been like directly affected, like no one's canceled a gig or anything like that,
That's
but
good.
which is good. And I'm actually working with a nonprofit right now, and they're in the midst of actually launching their ERG program. So when
Mm,
everyone is canceling and doing away with
mm-hmm.
DI, they're leaning in and they're launching their program. So
Good.
it's exciting. It gives me hope and perspective because it's like you hear the news and you're like, oh my God, like the sky is falling. And then you're like, well, is it? Because I'm still, ERGs are still calling me and I'm still talking to ERGs and ERGs, companies are still launching their ERGs. And so,
I do think rage bait and grief bait is real. And I mean, we can come back
yeah.
to that if you want to. I do think
Mhm.
staying informed matters, but also monitoring what sources you're consuming and how much you're consuming news also is a survival mechanism. I
A
think,
thousand percent.
yeah, I think that's really real. So, yes, then focusing on your communities and like digging in, which we've been talking about up to this point too, including ERGs. I think, yeah, that really matters. Okay, so the other part.
Yeah, that's like my day to day. What I decided to do, I guess this officially started probably in the fall. I signed up for like a accelerator or like a author accelerator program.
Oh,
And I decided that I was going to write a book. And
yay.
I wanted to write the book to sort of, I guess, establish myself more as a thought leader and be able to
Hmm.
generate more business, be on bigger stages. So
Hmm.
for me, being brave right now, like big, brave business, for me, I see my role as someone who, in addition to supporting ERGs, I'm like really putting myself out there and going to conferences or maybe speaking at bigger stages or maybe writing articles, essays, whatever the case might be
Hmm.
to really build a case for supporting underestimated employees and specifically people like me, Latinas, women of color, because I know that our experiences are some of the most difficult, being that we're like paid the least, the
Hmm.
numbers, something like 52 to 54 cents to the dollar
Mm.
that our white male counterparts make. And so, and over the course of like a 40-year career, that's like over $1 million that we lose in revenue. And that's like that affects my children, my grandchildren. I don't have any children, but
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
theoretically, my children and grandchildren, my nieces and nephews, I'm leaving all my money to them. So it impacts them. Like what I'm able to leave to future generations, what I spend in my community day in, day out. If I'm not being paid the same way, then my family suffers, my
I mean,
community
it affects
suffers,
everything.
everybody
Yeah.
suffers.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not good. And I can't retire when my peers retire. It's like the injustice and unfairness of it all is very troubling and unsettling. So
I mean, yeah. And then also it goes further into access to housing, access to
everything,
healthcare, access
a
to
thousand percent,
nutritious food. I mean, like it's
everything.
literally everything. And then the systemic ramifications of all of those things also matter because not just your money goes to the next generation, but also your housing influences the next generation's upbringing, right? And then where your housing is and dictates food deserts and access to food and access to quality education, which then has ramifications for the next generation of children and so on and so forth. I think this is important to call out because this is when we talk about systemic, right? This word, or like institutionalized. And you mentioned specifically like race. So racism, this is what we mean because it isn't just a pay gap, right? Like it isn't just that, but also solving the pay gap has all these ramifications, or even
Yes.
closing that, narrowing that pay gap has all of these positive ramifications across all of these different areas that really help rise the tide. So, yeah, I think this is just so important.
Yeah. So the book I'm writing is interesting because it doesn't talk about systemically what we can change. It talks about how we as individuals,
Mm,
what we can do to
mhm,
influence and kind of reclaim our power. So we have
mm,
power and we
mhm.
have influence and we can take up space. We can advocate for ourselves. We can advocate for other people. There's a lot that we can do as individuals. And to me, it's like this system is broken. This system is not going to be fixed in my lifetime. Like, who are we kidding? And now with the things that are happening now, is like, who knows what's going to happen? But you can't. So therefore, I can't. My influence and my ability to change and improve that system is quite limited right now.
Right.
And so what can I do? And then so I'm offering people like me and like you, like I would say a lot of people are going to benefit from the book, but it's
Yeah.
really about like what was my journey like to like realize that I had power and that I could step into that power
Mm,
and how I could champion for I could not only champion myself, but I could like lift other people too, which is like pretty powerful that you don't do the gatekeeping and it's not just like, well, this was great for me. Good luck. I hope it works out for you. But it's like, no, now I'm gonna help you too. I'm gonna help everybody. As many people as I can, I'm gonna help because we
yeah.
know that once we get through the door, we can bring people with us. So why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we doing that every time, all the time? So I talk about things like that, and I'm really excited. I can't. The book is scheduled to be out in the world in September, and I am like in it. I'm in it right now.
Oh, that's so fun and exciting. And yeah, I can feel the excitement pour off you when you talk about it. And that's really cool. I think so necessary right now, especially when people are feeling like I have two things that kind of came up as you were talking about that. As people are feeling powerless, as people are feeling like my vote didn't matter or whatever, like how whatever opportunity I have to create change for myself, for my community, for people who share my identity, whatever it is, right? That all of the thing, all of the above, like I feel powerless, I feel hopeless, I feel helpless. And to be able to help people find ways to be able to be change makers and to take action as individuals, as
Yes.
just a person, right? Because it's so easy to feel like what do I matter, and how could I even do anything that would affect change anyway, for myself, for my own life, or for like a bigger picture, any of the above. So I feel like right now that sentiment is very strong, and although we try to counteract it, I think even those of us like you and me who are so committed to it, it's both. We feel both. We feel the dichotomy of, oh, this is a very heavy weight crushing of Like, what do I matter anyway? What does any of this matter anyway? I thought we were
Yes.
further than this. I thought we were past this. I thought that not that I thought things were solved, I knew they weren't. And I think
Yeah.
one thing that I will say, and then I do have another point. One thing that I will say about that is that I've been saying since the election, I might have said on this podcast in the past, is this much work still needed to be done no matter who was elected president of the United States. But now we have a floodlight on it. Whereas if things had gone differently, and Kamala Harris was the president of the United States right now, it would be a lot easier for a lot of people to say, like, see, look how much progress we've made. And they wouldn't necessarily be as motivated to continue to do the work that still very much obviously needs to be done. This much work needed to be done no matter who was elected. So I think that at least now we have a floodlight on the problems that just keep getting
True.
clearer. One thing.
I was going
Go
to
ahead.
say that I actually was in a room full of practitioners for a presentation that I was asked to do.
Mhm.
And I was going to do a sneak peek of my book. And then I
Mm.
was like, oh God, like these poor people, I don't know if they want to hear about my book. They're all like suffering like day in and day out and really kind of going through it. But I ended up like realizing that there was a lot of tips and lessons that I learned that I could apply, that I think practitioners could apply, anybody could apply to like the moment. So I'll give you like an example. Like something that I talk about in the book is like self-care. I also talk about boundaries in the book. And when I think about the current moment and how like we stay positive and we stay hopeful and we stay steadfast and keep our eyes on like what we is important, it does have a lot to do with like taking care of ourselves, prioritizing self-care, unplugging from different websites or social media if that's what you need, having a cutoff time. I left Facebook, Instagram, Threads. I'm only right now on LinkedIn and Substack. That's it. And like that is what's working for me. I'm like being really careful about like the news that I bring into my orbit. So like I listen to certain podcasts of people that like I think do a good job of being kind of level-headed and not like the doom and gloom. I can't do doom and gloom. I'm already sad. Don't like make me more depressed. I can't do it. So I have to protect my peace. Protecting my peace is a priority. And so I feel like whether you're talking about dealing with a crappy manager or you're dealing with like not getting promoted on time or you're dealing with some other inequity in the workplace, like I feel like the lesson about like having the boundaries, protecting your peace, making self-care a priority, remaining steadfast, like building community, leaning in community. Those are all things I talk about in the book, and they all like can really, I think, serve us pretty well for the moment. They meet the moment pretty well. So that was like a refreshing surprise. I'm like, oh, this thing is like bulletproof.
Yeah, yeah. And I think really what that really shows, I think, is that it feels like in a lot of respects things are worse right now. And I think, especially speaking as a white woman, I think this is something I'm hearing among my white friends and family in particular, that like the fear and the anxiety is so high, which is in some respects extremely justified, right? Erasure of trans people from the internet as if they don't exist, and that can just continue, and by the time this comes out, god knows what else
Yeah,
has occurred.
exactly.
There are things that are being discussed that are really truly scary. I'm not I laugh because I'm nervous. That's not I'm not undermining that, right? Like there is some
Yes.
stuff that's very, very real. And one thing that I'm really hearing and feeling so much as a white person among my white community, especially white women, is this feeling that now I'm scared and now I'm depressed and now things are hard. And it's like, I think there is a part of me that has worked really hard to diversify my relationships and my friendships and my communities and listening to people and really realizing that, like,
Welcome to
I
our world.
yes, I say this with so much love. If you're listening and you're a white woman, it's such a privilege to have
Yeah.
not had to live with that until now. Not that
Yes.
that makes it easier to have now,
Mhm.
but there are strategies that you have leveraged in your life and learned, and lessons that you've learned in your life long before now, that it's always been true. And I think like there are a lot of ways it's absolutely not worse now than it's quote unquote ever been. There have been a lot of really heinous, horrible things for different identities of people. And those lessons do exist. And if
They
we can
exist
channel,
and they're passed down. So like I
yes,
talk about this in the book too, about like that generational wisdom.
yep,
And like I feel like it's a gift from my ancestors that I'm
yes,
resilient. And I don't even know, I can't teach you how to be resilient. I am resilient because my ancestors gave me that gift of like, you can't stay down. There's no time for that. Ain't nobody got time for staying down. Like we need to dust ourselves up off and get back up again and get back in the game and kind of like reach deep inside and be like,
yes,
that wasn't for me, or that happened, and that's sort of like that happened yesterday and now it's today, and today is a new day, and what's going to happen today is a function of what how I show up and how I deal and process whatever comes my way. So that's a gift. And a lot of people, it's like resilience shouldn't be like a badge. Like it's a hard thing. And it's like it's a little bit like sad that we have to wear it as a badge, but it's coming in handy right now. I'll tell you that much.
I've said this before, but I really and I'll probably say it again on this podcast because I tend to say the things I think, which when they're consistent, which is that it sounds really harsh, but I would never wish like suffering on anyone, especially the people I love. And I think when you've gone through things, it makes you a more interesting person. And someone who hasn't quote unquote gone through anything is sometimes a less interesting person. And when you're speaking generationally, right, ancestrally, I
Yeah.
think that there's a lot of truth to that. And so I think part of the reason why this book is so important and relevant before the current administration and in the current cultural climate is that listening to stories from people who have learned lessons and strategies and skills to thrive, I'll say, survive, to find success, to all of the above, right? In the midst of all kinds of circumstances that yeah, I think this is really important work and exciting. And I'm so glad you're doing it. And I'm so glad you feel excited. I'd love to hear, you said you did an author acceleration program. Is that what you called it?
Yeah, it's like a accelerator program. Yeah.
So tell me about that. So had you always thought that writing a book is something that you wanted to do, or did you like find this program and that made you think like, oh, I could do this? Like how did that kind of journey look for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say that when I was younger, like third grade, fourth grade, I did
Yeah.
want to be an author. I was like, oh, I'm going to be an author. I
Yeah.
loved reading,
Mhm.
always loved reading, big fan of novels. My mom would take me to the library like every week. I was part of like RIF, which is something called Reading is Fundamental. And they would give you like free books. Every time you like read a certain amount of books, you get another book. So it's like my house was full of books, and my mom always encouraged us to read. That was like when we were punished, there wasn't a lot we could do, but we could read.
Yep.
Yeah, so that we were never denied the opportunity to do that, even if we like couldn't watch TV or something like that back in the 80s. But I would say so I've always loved it, but I'm not as an especially good, I don't think I'm a great writer. I'm like an average writer type thing, I would say. However, and I'm on Substack, and on Substack you could write like what they call notes, and it's just like it's like a post, like it's like a thread kind of idea. And I wrote something the other day, and this is how I would describe it. I was like, it's not that I'm such a good writer, it's that I have something to say. And I think that is the important thing. It's not like my editor will help me. Everybody's gonna chip in and make it sound good. And
Yeah.
I think I have like kind of a unique writing style because I write like I talk. So it's like very like dramatic. So there's a little bit of that. I am good at that, like with the stories. Like it feels like it's all like gossip. So it's really like you're kind of like, what? So I think that part is there, but it's more that I have something to say, and I have like such like these random things that have happened to me that it's just like you can't even make it up. Like nothing that I wrote is made up, but it's gonna sound like it because it's like this couldn't have happened, and it's like yes, it did. It really did. Like the story I start with is about how I went to work one day on a Saturday, and it was like when I was a consultant, Like I was dressed down because it was like a Saturday morning. So I was like in shorts or something, just like not in a suit like I would during the week. But anyway, long story short is I went to get like the key to the room that my colleagues and I were gonna go. We were there to test software. So we were testing
Okay.
like the software and we were writing tickets. If like we found a bug, we would log a ticket type thing. So
Okay.
we had work to do.
Okay.
And I asked the security guard, who was a white older gentleman, hey, can I have the key to the test lab on the second floor? And he was like, oh, are you here to clean it? And like that is how I start the book. Because that and that's and I bet you a lot of
How
money.
mortifying.
I bet you a lot of money that there's a lot of women, Latinas, women of color that have been confused for like the secretary, the cleaning
Sure.
lady, some other. I've been on
I
calls.
hope he was mortified.
No, he was just like, I was like, I'm here. I was like, I need the key because I'm here to test, yo. Like, just give me the key and keep it moving. But I was like 21. So I also was like,
Hmm?
I didn't have words. I was like, I remained silent for a very long time when he said that to me because I didn't know what to say. I was very offended because having
Sure.
just graduated from college and I
Yeah,
was
you worked hard.
working for like this really big consulting company. So I was like, I'm here to test. And he was like, great, you're here to clean. And I'm like, oh my God, like he
Ugh.
crushed me. That was a devastating moment.
Ugh.
But anyway, that is how I start because I do want
Mhm.
it to be like jaw dropping to some degree because that is the experience that some of us have had, maybe worse, some of us
Yes,
have
yes,
had.
yes.
And at the same time, there's ways to navigate that and to also advocate for yourself in moments like that and
Mhm.
to not be in shock and to not to really, like you said, he should have apologized to me when he realized that, like he should have said, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to assume, here's the key, whatever. I don't know, he should have said something that was a little bit more like respectful of me, and he didn't excuse himself, he didn't apologize, he just kind of handed me the key and went on his merry way, and I don't think he ever thought about it again. And that happened about, I don't know, like 30 years ago, more, maybe more. And I still remember not only what happened, but how I felt because the shock and the like humiliation of it was
Yeah.
really intense for me. I remember that moment very clearly.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But going back to your like the
Yeah,
accelerator
yeah,
program, yeah.
yeah.
I'm gonna answer your question now. I had to tell a story, took a side little detour.
I loved it. I mean, I didn't love the story, but I love that you told it.
Yeah, no, I want you have to, like you said, you got to be brave. This is what you got to do. You got to say the thing and just put it out there because this happens. But what I wanted to share is that there was a Latina who published a book probably like last year, the beginning of last year. And I was like, and it was a book about like finance, but she also like shared a lot of her like life.
Mhm.
And it was so awesome to just read that book. Like I couldn't put it down. And I'm not like a big finance person, but like it was just so awesome because it was like I saw myself in the book and I was like,
Yes,
shit, I gotta do this. Like if she, yo, this is great. This is
yes,
great. We should all be doing this. And I feel like that
yes.
really inspired me.
Yeah.
And then I asked her, I'm like, how did you like even get to this point? And she's like, well, I work with this coach. So she
Oh,
introduced me to her coach, and that's the book coach that I used to for the program.
that's awesome. That almost like gives me chills to think of just the power of why quote unquote representation matters, because hearing yourself, seeing yourself, I mean, it makes a difference. And it's so like both things have such an influence. Not seeing yourself or hearing yourself means number one, like this wasn't for me, this wasn't with me in mind, this person doesn't even know me or my lived experience. But number two, I have to adapt everything that I'm hearing or learning. I have to adapt it to make sense for me. And so that definitely has an experience. And then also the flip side of that being, I when I do see myself, when I do hear myself, it's like, oh, I belong
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
I'm
or
not
my story
alone.
matters. Like what happens to me matters, or like there are
Yeah.
other, like I like that whole me too. Yeah, like me too. That happened to me. Like because I do feel like I share lots of different stories. I'm sure everyone hasn't had like the same exact things happen, but maybe one or two people have experienced something similar, or maybe they've like everyone has like one or two stories that they're gonna be able to really relate to. And it's just like, yeah, me too. Like I can't believe that happened to you. That happened to me. And I almost inevitably, when I share my stories, people come back and they're like, oh, something like that happened to me. And then they'll say their thing. And it's just like, then you don't feel alone. And I think that that's an important thing. Right now,
Yeah.
it is important for people to feel less alone
Yeah.
on their journey, or if we're just talking about like not considering what's happening outside, but even as you consider what's happening in the world, in our country and in our world, you definitely don't want to feel alone right now. Like this is not the time to feel like, oh, woe is
Yeah.
me, and like there's nobody like me, or where do I fit in? Or you
Yeah.
want to be fitting in somewhere right now, and you want to have people, your
You
people.
have to. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Because, and I also say this a lot, but I don't want that to be confused or misconstrued for not having meaning, because I genuinely mean it. This world is a better place with you in it. And I think this is so important. So to you listening, like, take a minute and please really absorb that. There are really hard days that have been happening, and there are really hard days ahead. And we have to hold on to each other so that we have that reminder that the only way to tomorrow is to find a way to survive to it, right? Like we have to get to tomorrow. So please be in tomorrow with us. Like please be there. And I do think that that's really part of the reason why this timing for your book is just so important and valuable. And I think so many people need to hear it. I would love to spend another hour with you talking about like the book writing journey, because I think that the person listening to this, me, you, like we're all the type of people who either have written books or probably want to write a book or will write a book at some point, would have something to say to your point. And I would love to continue having that conversation, but we've already been talking for a while, which is just crazy. I don't know how time just flew. You have such a way of telling stories, and it's been so fun to talk to you. So as you probably know, I like to end these conversations with the same question. It could be work related, but it does not have to be. What is something that's making you happy right now?
Well, I would have to say it's the book, because the book has it's a gift to me that I didn't know I needed. I hope it will be a gift to the world and to my readers. I hope that
Yeah.
it's going to make a difference in their life and make them feel a little bit less alone and more seen and valued and appreciated. But
Yeah.
man, it's like a good cocktail. I don't know. It's just like it brings me joy. It's just life-giving. The people I'm meeting, I'm building a team of people, because this is like the book is like it is a project, and there's like a lot of people involved, like editors and illustrators, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of people, and it's just like eh, it's exciting. It's just like it is good stuff. So, and I'm enjoying the ride. I'm like not even just like trying to get to the end part. I'm like I'm gonna enjoy the experience. So it's been such a joy. That is truly filling my cup and then some,
I
overflowing right
really, I really see that, hear that, because talking to you, especially like face to face, seeing you, the joy when you talk about it literally radiates off of you. And that actually is energy like we so need right now. So I want to
now.
spend more time with you. Like, hey, I want some of that. Like, serve me a cup of that, please. I love that. That's so cool. And I can't wait to read it. So you said it's coming out in September?
Yes, in
Okay,
time for
okay, great.
Hispanic Heritage Month.
Oh, how exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, so something that is making me happy right now. This is a weird one because it's making me happy, but it's also making me sad, but for a good reason, which is I've talked a little bit on here about how we are thinking about moving out of Arizona next year, kind of exploring our options. We're in this like life phase, my partner and I, where our kids are all over 20 now. And so we're trying to assess like, what do we want to do? Right? Like now our life doesn't have to revolve completely around what they need from us. So they're I wouldn't say they're independent people. Two of them recently moved back into my house temporarily, but they're on their way to being independent people. So it's kind of like before they start having kids, it's kind of now or never. Like if we were going to leave Arizona, this would be the time to do it. So we are exploring our options. And one at the top of my partner's list is Seattle. And so we just took a trip up there to kind of scope out areas, to learn more about like what moving the business up there would look like, what moving our home would look like, what kind of areas we might live in. And oh, we just loved it. We just really,
Oh, that's
really loved
great.
it. So I've been saying that it's like I could see my partner wagging his tail being there. It was just so obvious that it's calling so hard to him, and just seeing his joy and his belonging being
Yeah.
there. We've been together for like a decade, and so I know him very well. I've known him for a long time, and I've just never seen it like this with him. So that alone is like a reason why it moved up on my
Yes.
list. It's just so beautiful and different, and the air quality was so good, and so many people there with like, no, no, we were saying like, can you imagine being from Arizona, living in a place where like your neighbors have yard signs that say that like love is love and
Yeah.
science is real, and and they have pride flags hanging and Black Lives Matter flag, even on churches, like the side of
Yeah.
churches, pride flags and Black Lives Matter. And gosh, we just don't have that here. So
Yeah. I live in New York, so I'm
yeah,
used to I mean, well, we got our own problems, but by and large,
we
we
sure, and I'm sure,
we're a
and
progressive place. Yeah.
everywhere has their own, but man, can't imagine having that. So that the idea of making this big move feels scary, and there's some grief, and like I've worked hard to build a whole life here, and that means saying goodbye to it. I know you moved in the last year too, and had
Good.
like, yeah, so I know you understand, but that is it's a big decision, and there's some sadness in me, but it's also like I'm so excited. And
Oh my God, I could imagine.
I'm
It's
looking at the
everything's
weather
new.
here over the next 10 days, and it's just, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna suffer this summer. So the idea of like this being my last Phoenix summer would be great if
Yeah.
it could be possible. So,
That's good. I love
so
that.
yeah.
Moving is fun. I'm like working at the local bookstore. I'm about to host
Oh,
a feel good book club in starting in April. And yeah, and I love like supporting the local stores. Like it's a very cute little town that I live in. So
yeah.
it's meeting the moment for me.
That's
I
so
was ready for
great.
this.
That's
Yeah.
so great. Yeah, I love that. And yeah, so I feel really excited about it. I feel we're gonna try to get back up there this year. I don't know. We'll see. So before we like make a big decision, it's a lot of logistics. Moving is a lot of logistics also
Yeah.
to figure out. So,
It's very
anyways, it's
stressful. It
not
can be
all
very
happy,
stressful. Yeah.
but overall, it is making me really happy. And that's like kind of my hyper fixation right now. Is like, oh,
And I love that
this
your
love stuff.
partner is like it's giving them life, and
Oh
like
my
that's exciting
gosh. Yeah.
they'll be like at the top of their game in that environment.
Yes.
That's good. That you want that. That's a gift. That's
Yes.
a beautiful gift that you can give them.
Yes. And man, there's something really powerful about like watching someone you love lighting up. Like that
Yeah.
is just, yeah, he's so funny though, because he has like this, people are like, "Oh, it's cloudy there a lot." I'm like, "Yes, I know." And it's a big change. We're going from 300 days of sunshine to like 300 days of clouds. I get that. But he has this funny thing he'll do where like on a Saturday we'll be going to run errands or something, and he's driving and he like makes a grumpy face and he says, "Another Saturday morning with clear blue skies, not a cloud to be seen." And it's like, that's what most people want.
Yeah, that's what they
Like,
want.
that's really funny. So as soon as he saw the clouds, he's just like I said, literally his tail is wagging. He's like, "Oh my gosh, I love it here." It's like, okay, yeah, that's fine. All right, I'll live with the clouds.
That's great. I'm happy for you. I
Yeah,
can't wait to
thank
hear more
you.
about that.
Yeah, definitely more to come. But thank you so much for spending this time with me again. And I can't wait to have you back for season 3 and our new format, and like figuring out what that's going to look like and how that's going to go. But so excited to continue to chat with you, to read your book. So many fun things to come. And again, that's the kind of energy we need to be channeling. There's so many fun things to come. There's so much light, and there's so much, yeah, So much
We can't
resilience.
joy is an act of resistance. Come on now.
Yes, 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 yes. I love that. You found a lot of good like
Yes.
mic drop moments on this podcast. So I feel like that's a really good indicator when you say like, oh, I think I'm an average writer. I don't know. You've got some good little
Well,
quip.
I didn't make that one up. So
I
the
know,
joy
sure,
is an
sure.
act of resistance came from somewhere else, but I subscribe to it for sure.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, thank you for being here. And to you listening, thank you for being here, of course, as well. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Ciao.
If you already have a podcast, but you're feeling stuck or frustrated because nobody's really listening, or you just wish more people were listening, or you want to figure out how to start making some money from your podcast, whether that's through sponsored ads or any other form of monetization. By the way, did you know there's other forms of monetization? That is exactly the kind of thing that my team at Podfox Media can help you achieve. You can schedule your strategy session with us today at helpmyshow.com. That's helpmyshow.com. Schedule a session and I'll see you there.